And since we wrote this article, we've been getting, every day I get emails from people corroborating and expanding on the thesis that we put forward in our article. The other thing that's been amazing is that if you go to Google and type in the title of our article, which is Rule by Fear or Rule by Law, you get over 35,000 hits. So this article has been viral. It has just, I've never been involved in anything that has spread this quickly in terms of people. It's kind of like a hunger for somebody to start telling the truth and to say it. Again, I think it's key that a mainstream newspaper was willing to print this.
Well, I agree, but here's what happens. 4 years ago, we had a mayor on, I even forget the town, but it was in local TV news. They admitted it. Then we had him on, but it never got national news. The feds approached him and said, we're going to build a giant concentration camp here for martial law. You can Google that. We wrote stories about it at the time. I'm just now remembering. See, there's been so many of these for me that I've forgotten, more than I can even imagine. It's just so much, but it never gets that national platform.
No, you're not going to see it on MSNBC. You're not going to see it on CNN. And that's what really keeps it kind of in the background because, as we all know, Americans are so poorly informed politically. And the government, if you've watched George Carlin's riff on the American educational system, it's not by accident that Americans are the most undereducated people on the planet.
No, you're right. Now, in the San Francisco or California area, is this article starting to get people concerned?
Well, it's not just here. As I said, I've been getting emails and phone calls from all over the country, and this has spread like wildfire on the internet. And there's actually, there's a lot more that could be done with this. This article, it's like an 800-word article. It barely scratches the surface.
In fact, that's one reason I got you on, sir. Do you know about the clergy response teams?
No.
Okay. 2 years ago, 2 different pastors contacted me. They gave me secret FEMA documents. The feds even tracked back how the pastor got them to me, came to him, threatened him. One of them scared him. A year after I reported it, local television in Louisiana reported the same thing. They said for martial law, 26,000 preachers have been recruited to tell their flocks to turn their guns in, to go to FEMA camps, to take forced inoculations, that it's of the Lord, Romans 13, Hitler's favorite quote, to submit to Caesar and government, and that whatever government we have is of God. And then now they have the InfraGard program, 23,000 CEOs and corporate chiefs in a secret police program to spy on people, 44,000 truck drivers. Have you heard about that?
Oh, I definitely heard about it. I think it was reported this last week on Democracy Now! And I've seen a couple articles about it. Yeah.
So my point is there are 26,000 preachers, and they plan to double that number this year. It was 13, then 26. Now they want to double this year to 50-plus thou. If that isn't secret police / East Germany, what is?
Well, it is. It's exactly, I remember growing up in the 60s, and we'd hear about how communist governments controlled the population, and we learned to think how horrible that was, and it's exactly what's going on in our country today. And people are either going to wake up to it, or they're going to be living under and arguably we are already living.
Stay there, Daniel. I want to hear more on the other side. Stay with us.
The Genesis Communications Radio Network proudly presents The Alex Jones Show, because there's a war on for your mind.
Again, Daniel Hamburg is a former member of the U.S. House of Representatives from California. We're extremely honored to have him and very appreciative. Hopefully I can keep him into the next segment because we're running low on time. There's so much I want to tell him, so much he's telling me I didn't know. And I said, what do you think is most important to talk about when we come back? He said, well, why are they contemplating this? Why are they setting this up? And that's the point. When they start hiring 26,000 preachers, and we got the secret documents a year before they was in the news, saying, get people ready to go to camps, American citizens, to submit, and then it came out in the news later. This is big. This is being prepared. Please continue, sir.
Yeah, well, we were talking during the break about what could the government possibly be contemplating that makes it necessary for them to make these kinds of arrangements, to be building and in some cases refurbishing these Army bases and other detention facilities, training the military, the InfraGard program in which business leaders, 23,000 business leaders from around the country have been recruited essentially to spy on their fellow citizens and report to Homeland Security. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we were taught as kids goes on in the most totalitarian societies, and here it is going on in the USA. So, back in the 80s when Ollie North was involved in secret ops for the Reagan administration, there was fear that if there was an attack on Central America, that would cause a kind of civil unrest that would need to be contained, and people would have to be rounded up and put into detention facilities. But today, I think the stakes have been raised tremendously, and I think the government is, in fact, contemplating taking actions that will lead to massive disruption, perhaps in major cities, and things that the government feels it needs to be ready for. This often comes under the heading of continuity of government, the government's need to maintain its operations even in the face of massive domestic resistance to their programs. And I think right now the most obvious thing that I think the government is contemplating is a furtherance and an intensified war in the Middle East. I think that if anyone who believes that because the Bush administration only has another 11 months in office that they're finished with their reign of terror, just doesn't really understand the mentality of this administration. I think an expansion of the war in the Middle East is a real possibility, and I think that if it happens, people are not going to remain in slumber. Or at least a large number of people are going to say, hey, this is too much. We elected a new Congress in '06 hoping that this war was going to be brought to an end, and now instead we're going to see an expanded war. But I don't think that's the only thing they have in mind. I think it's a whole mentality of being in total control over the society and being able to move the society in whatever direction the elites want it to move.
They are seizing the entire infrastructure and the body politic's mind to forge us as a warmock, a juggernaut, an engine of global Pax Americana, Anglo-American system, and you hit the nail on the head. They're going to need a draft. The military's already completely falling apart. People are starting their 4th, 5th tours, and they know people are going to riot if they try to institute the draft. They know there's resistance. They intend for both parties to continue with these policies, so they have to have an incremental march into police state martial law, they think, to be able to do that. But if we preemptively expose their program and show how it is a blueprint, a roadmap, that could preemptively derail them. Congressman, do you agree?
Yeah, and the other thing I think is critical, and something that we've been pushing for, and I'm sure you have, and some people around the country have, is the commencement of impeachment proceedings against Bush and Cheney, if for no other reason than to simply slow them down and occupy them so that they're somewhat contained. And, it seems like right now there is a struggle going on within the American government between the neocons, of course, led by Cheney, and elements of the intelligence services, the 16 intelligence services that came out with the NIE report that basically cut the legs out from under Bush's claims that, Iran was on the verge of creating a nuclear weapon. And certain elements within the military, probably led by people like Bill Fallon, who's the head of CENTCOM. And what we're seeing is a struggle between those two elements over how far this military juggernaut is going to be allowed to go in the next 11 months.
Congressman, can you stay with us about 10 more minutes?
I'd be glad to.
Okay, we'll be back after this quick break with Congressman Daniel Hamburg, tell you about some of his websites and organizations as well. This is the fight of our lives, the fight for the heart and soul of this country.